excited when Judy approached me to, and the title she gave me was The Elements of Industry 4.0. And I thought long and hard with it, about it rather. Judy said to me, you know, it's pretty much up to me what I would like to present. So I thought, you know, I want to put myself in your shoes as learners, you know, being in different grades in school. Some of you might be in grade 12, going into, you know, a new journey after school. And I thought, you know, what would be beneficial for you as learners from this discussion. So hence I decided to make this an overview of OIR first, then to look at the opportunities that exist or that it brings, and then also to see where do you fit or where you possibly can benefit as an individual or a learner from 4IR. Okay, so what I would like to cover with in this presentation is, as I said, what is Industry 4.0 about? I want to also look at the 4IR technologies, look at future predictions around 4IR, which is very interesting. I'll share with you a slide later on that. Then once we've got an understanding, conceptual understanding of what Industry 4.0 is, or 4IR for short, I would like to look at the workforce of the future. Now, you will obviously realize that it's basically you guys are the workforce of the future. So there's some interesting facts I would like to share. Then I want us to look at 4IR awareness in general, upskilling of learners and students, university students. And this you will see when we get to the slides. I had a look at statistics, and I know sometimes statistics can be a bit boring, but I would like to ask you to bear with me, because the stats that I'm going to show you gives us a very interesting, or sketches a very interesting picture of the landscape and possible opportunities that may exist for you as learners and students in the future. Then also the responsibility of upskilling. It was interesting, the response from the youth that was part of the study, what they were saying about that. So I'll share that with you later. Then I want us to look at skills demands in, as it were, in 2020. And you will recall it was just before COVID started, versus what it will look like in, it's now 8 years from now, in 2030. Then I just briefly want to touch one slide on youth unemployment, and then end with 21st century skills, which is really what, as I said earlier, being or becoming the workforce of the future. This is really where your focus should lie on upskilling or gaining or honing rather your 21st century skills. So we'll touch on that as well. Okay, so without further ado, 4IR is quite a complex concept, so I thought it would be best to share a video with you that explains it quite nicely for me. When I start the video, I just want maybe Judy, if you can give me a heads up if you can hear the sound, I'll appreciate that. Is the sound coming through?
No, the sound's not coming through.
Okay. So let me see. Oops, sorry about that. I think let me just. There, I should click the sound and optimize share. Can you see the presentation screen again?
Yes, we can see the presentation screen.
Okay. Is it coming through now?
Yes, now it's coming through.
Excellent.
Since the time of the earliest tools and the mastery of fire, technological progress has been an integral part of being human. By utilizing technology, we have surpassed the most efficient and capable life forms on our planet. But in a world of ever-increasing complexity and finite resources, we are now presented with a whole new set of challenges. How will the next industrial revolution change the way we live, and quite possibly, what it means to be human? Throughout history, there have been periods of remarkable innovation. The first industrial revolution created new goods and new jobs through the introduction of manufacturing. The power of water, iron, and steam helped bring manufacturing out of our homes and into a larger world. Cities and opportunities grew. In the second, we forged better materials such as steel, harnessed the power of oil through internal combustion engines, and utilized electricity through generators and transmission lines. We catalyzed manufacturing and expanded what was possible. After the digital revolution, we possess computers so small they can fit in our pockets, and they're 1,000,000 times cheaper and 1,000,000 times more powerful than the best supercomputer only 25 years ago. Connecting through the internet has encouraged an incredible library of knowledge, setting the stage for the greatest revolution yet. So what is the fourth industrial revolution? Industry 4.0 involves a range of new technologies that are fusing the physical, digital, and biological worlds and impacting all disciplines, economies, and industries. Central to this revolution are emerging technology breakthroughs in areas such as robotics, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, nanotechnology, and 3D printing. These technologies can improve lives, create new jobs, make goods cheaper and better, and impact the world in ways we have yet to imagine. While it's remarkable to see the current trends, it's important to remember that technological progress is not simply guaranteed. It requires people to make it happen. This is your opportunity to get involved. This revolution does not happen without your help. Now is the time to be imagining. Now is the time to be creating. Now is the time to be a manufacturer.
Okay, I hope you listened carefully to what the narrator was saying. So I want to leave you with the words, and I'm going to come back through the slides to this. Now is the time, and now is the time to be creative. And you as a learner are central in this, to grab this opportunity and make it happen. Okay, so I just want to see how I get out of the screen so I can get back to my presentation. Sorry about that.
Just click escape. And it
Escape.
may,
Okay.
yeah, it
There we
may
go.
go out of presentation mode, and then you just put it back in again. Yeah.
There we go.
That's what I found.
So, yeah. Thanks, Judy. I would encourage you to listen carefully, and there's 2 more videos coming. The reason why, and what you will see through the slides, especially the first couple of slides, I will be repeating some concepts because I personally found it quite difficult to get my head around Industry 4.0. And as I said in the beginning, I've done a lot of research through the years. I actually started in 2019 doing research on the subject, and I still find new things and concepts which I don't understand. So we've only got about an hour, so I'm trying to break it down and make it as understandable as possible. So please bear with me if I repeat concepts that it's already been mentioned, but I'm doing it with the purpose to hopefully try and create a fuller picture or a better understanding around 4IR. So, oops. Okay, so as I said, so just to summarize again, how did we get to where we are with the Industry 4.0 being on our doorsteps, or actually already it came about in 2013. So in the 18th century, or towards the end of the 18th century, there was new goods and new jobs through the introduction of manufacturing, and essentially making use of water and steam power was the highlight of that industry. Industry 2.0 is all about the mass production, and you will recall in the video you would see the little Model T Fords coming off the ramp, and it became very popular as a way of manufacturing, getting more goods out, and so on. Then around the beginning of the 21st century, there was the introduction of automation and robotics. And interestingly enough, your plants, production plants, you would see robots being used here and there to do welding and other stuff. Then in 2013, Industry 4.0 was born, which is largely about digitizing processes. And I'm not going to say too much more, because we're going to cover a bit more on obviously 4.0 on the coming slides. And then already in 2020 plus, there's talk about Industry 5.0, or where the focus is on co-working. Now, in my research, I found a saying, a general saying, that they say that us humans, or man as they call it, must learn to run with machines and not run away from machines. And I think what the statement is trying to say is that we need to embrace technology and work with it, and not be scared of it, or run away from it, so to speak. Maybe I can just briefly pause. Are there any questions or any hands at this point in time?
Nico, no, there aren't any. I think for me, if I can just make a comment, it's we always, as human beings, we always fear change, and we quite often we fear what is new. However, as a species, we have spread ourselves across the planet. We always explore. You know, we're now going into space because we need to explore our solar system. So there are always going to be those innovators or leaders who are going to embrace the new technology, and who are going to really embrace working with machines. For me, I really like productivity tools, what helps me to be productive. And that's why, you know, nowadays I can't understand what I did before I had a smartphone, because I'm just so much more productive for having it. So, yeah, I think that if we realize that, you know, the whole thing is that the machines aren't going to become our master. They're going to be useful. They're going to be our helpers. They're not going to be our bosses. And I think that that's maybe just the way to look at it.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Judy, for that. That's in essence, or that's exactly what I think when I say we must run with the machine, so to speak, is, you know, don't see it as a threat, because one of the big no's or the cons that you hear from Industry 4.0 is that the machine's going to take away our jobs. So I think it's also a mindset, you know, and what the narrator said in the video, the time is now to be imaginative and creative. So it's almost a question of, is the glass half full or half empty? It's how you look at it and what you make out of the opportunity. What I also wanted to say, I think unknowingly, COVID has actually boosted the acceptance of technology, because you know, suddenly you've got all over, you can do touchless, or what do you call it? You can just tap your card, you know, to pay. You don't have to put your card into the machine. I even saw lately at one of the shopping centers nearby, where you go in the parking space, where you used to press the button, get your parking ticket. They've converted that thing now. You just wave. There's a little sensor, you wave, you wave, sorry, with your hand at the sensor, and then the boom opens, you know. So the onset of COVID has actually propelled these technologies and adoption of these technologies, which is, I think, a good thing. Okay. So just to summarize again, and I don't know if you can remember what we saw in the video. So 4IR is a fusion of technologies which blurs the lines between the following worlds: the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. You will recall in the video we saw the AI, or there was a green block tracking the person that was walking. So that's one example of the technology in action. It's also resulted in emerging technologies, as was mentioned: robotics, artificial intelligence or AI, the Internet of Things, IoT, which I've covered in the previous slide, and which we indeed also use with our kits, our Space STEM kits. You will know well that that is a good example of IoT that you guys are implementing within the space environment. Autonomous vehicles, there's a lot of news about Tesla and Google vehicles in the news. Nanotechnology, which largely has to do with technology in such a small scale that, for instance, you can a human can swallow a electronic device to track certain stuff. I've even seen an article that they do implants underneath your skin where they can track things like, for instance, blood sugar levels and so on. 3D printing, which I think is quite well known. And then these technologies, what they bring about, and again, this is from a positive outlook, they improve lives. You know, as I just mentioned now, being able to track glucose levels for a patient that has got diabetes. And then it creates new jobs. A lot of these jobs, or let me say, some of these jobs don't exist at this point in time. They still need to be created. So that's the other exciting thing about the fourth Industry 4.0. What it also does, it makes goods cheaper and better. And then on the other side, it's disruptive. It can be very disruptive. But again, you know, it's what you make of it and how you embrace it. It impacts the world in ways we have yet to imagine. It requires people to make it happen, and I think that's very important. And you will find in my present, there's the thread will come through every time. It requires people to happen, which is you. It's you guys. You know, you are the future workforce. So again, there's an opportunity. You can make it happen. And as we said, it provides future work opportunities. So I've thought about this video. I found another video which gives it a different angle, which I also would like to share with you, because it also brings up another concept of the fourth industrial revolution. The video is slightly longer, so before I go into the video, are there any questions or comments at this point in time?
None that I could see, Nico.
Thanks, Brittany. Okay, so let's...
Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR. Let's first define what technological revolution is. Technological revolution is a period in which one or more technologies is replaced by another technology in a short amount of time. It is an era of accelerated technological progress characterized by new innovations whose rapid application and diffusion cause an abrupt change in society. 1. First Industrial Revolution. The first industrial revolution used water and steam power to mechanize production. The first industrial revolution, the major shift of technological, socio-economic and cultural conditions in the late 18th century and early 19th century that began in Britain and spread throughout the world. 2. Second Industrial Revolution. The Second Industrial Revolution 1871 to 1914. The second used electric power to create mass production. The Second Industrial Revolution was another great leap forward in technology and society. New innovations in steel production, petroleum and electricity led to the introduction of public automobiles and airplanes. In this lesson, learn about the key inventions that spurred this revolution. 3. Third Industrial Revolution. The Third Industrial Revolution, the sweeping changes brought about by computing and communication technology, starting from circa 1950 with the creation of the first general-purpose electronic computers. The third used electronics and information technology to automate production. The Third Industrial Revolution, How Lateral Power is Transforming Energy, the Economy, and the World is a book by Jeremy Rifkin published in 2011. The premise of the book is that fundamental economic change occurs when new communication technologies converge with new energy regimes, mainly renewable electricity. Now the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR. Fourth Industrial Revolution is building on the third, the digital revolution that has been occurring since the middle of the last century. It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. There are three reasons why today's transformations represent not merely a prolongation of the Third Industrial Revolution but rather the arrival of a fourth and distinct one: velocity, scope, and systems impact. The speed of current breakthroughs has no historical precedent. When compared with previous industrial revolutions, the fourth is evolving at an exponential rather than a linear pace. Moreover, it is disrupting almost every industry in every country. And the breadth and depth of these changes herald the transformation of entire systems of production, management, and governance. The Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR, characterized by the fusion of the digital, biological, and physical worlds, as well as the growing utilization of new technologies such as artificial intelligence, cloud computing, robotics, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, and advanced wireless technologies, among others, has ushered in a new era of economic disruption with uncertain socio-economic consequences for Africa. However, Africa has been left behind during the past industrial revolutions. The Fourth Industrial Revolution, finally, will change not only what we do but also who we are. It will affect our identity and all the issues associated with it, our sense of privacy, our notions of ownership, our consumption patterns, the time we devote to work and leisure, and how we develop our careers, cultivate our skills, meet people, and nurture relationships. It is already changing our health and leading to a quantified self, and sooner than we think it may lead to human augmentation. The list is endless because it is bound only by our imagination. Please subscribe and like Timothy.
Okay, so it gives you a different angle on 4IR, but the points I want to highlight and what I picked up from the video when I listened to it the first time was at some point it was mentioning about the Industrial Revolution and Africa being left behind. I think the big thing with 4IR is that it creates a massive opportunity for the continent of Africa, which we obviously part of, to be part of this revolution. And again, you know, repeating myself, now is the time, make it happen. Another thing that was also very relevant, and I think you might have experienced, well, not might have, you will definitely have experienced it, is the part of the disruptive nature of the technology is privacy concerns. You know, and there's an act, I don't know if you guys have heard about the POPIA Act, or the I can't remember what the acronym stands now. It's
Protection of Personal Information Act.
Information Act. Thanks, Judy. I had it, but I just hit a blank now. Thanks for that. So the POPIA Act was brought in to protect our privacy, our data, and so on. You will see nowadays, if you go on a website, there will be a pop-up asking you to accept cookies, where they track your clicks or your behavior on the internet. So that is part of the POPIA Act, and to try and manage your privacy. So you as the user need to give consent for them to track your behavior online. If you press no, then they won't track you. Another thing that also stood out is the way we work, the way we're going to work in future. again, COVID, as I said, has propelled or has sort of pushed the technology, the adoption of the technology on us with work from home. What we're doing in this session, a lot of people meeting via Zoom. So all these technologies are coming to the fore, and it will have an impact on the way you're working in future. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, let's move on. So I don't know how many of you, as I said, I do a lot of reading and research on the internet. And sometimes on the internet, you will find this paragraph, TLDR. I don't know if you guys know what it stands for.
Too long, didn't read. I know that very well.
Yes. Thanks, Brittany. I was wondering how many people gonna catch that. So yes, I'm also guilty. I always, if there's a long thing, I also skip to that paragraph. Too long, don't read. So so I thought it would be appropriate to put it in there. Thanks for sharing that. So in that spirit, I tried to summarize what we've viewed up till now in one sentence, I guess. And that is, machines are integrated with men through cyber-physical systems, or CPS. And digitization, is the most important element of Industry 4.0 because it allows to connect man and technology. So there you have it. Again, the message is coming through: work with technology and embrace technology. So just for a moment, cyber physical systems is quite a big word or a concept. So I thought, let me just share quickly what that means in essence. So here you've got your physical space, or the physical world, the real space that we live in as humans, electricity, trains, the house we live in, transport, so on and so forth, the place we work. And then you've got the cyberspace lying at the top, which is physical sensing from this. Okay, yeah, what I also should mention is you've got the object domain. So in our environment that we live, for argument's sake, in a house, and for a minute we can bring in our STEM kit. So if you think about your STEM kit has got temperature and it's got lux, it connects to the internet. There you could also, if you want to, I guess in future, Judy, you can add a camera to it, and so on and so forth. But what I want to, the message I want to convey is that this is the blurring or the connection rather between the physical realm that we live in with all the sensors and that being connected to the cyberspace. So as we know, with our kit, our temperature and humidity and those readings get sent via the internet, via our Wi-Fi connection to the internet, and we can see it on the dashboard. So in essence, our kit is also a cyber physical system in the small. I just wanted to share that with you. So if we now look at the 4IR technologies, and you obviously have seen, I think I've had a similar picture in my IoT presentation, but in essence, the technologies that 4IR is bringing to the front, apart from mobile devices and IoT, is location detection technologies, advanced human and machine interfaces. Again, there you see the interaction between man and machine, authentication and fraud detection, 3D printing, which is already well known, smart sensors, and then big data. Obviously, even like with our STEM kit, there's a lot of data being generated, and you will recall, if you go onto your Kibana dashboard, as Judy showed us, if you click, there's a place where you can click on your kit, and it sort of rolls or pulls down all the data that was collected from your kit, and you can see there's quite a lot of data being collected. So one of the things with 4IR that's been brought about is what they call big data. Huge amounts of data that are being collected and stored in the cloud. And then multi-customer interaction and customer profiling. Again, it comes back to what I said earlier, the question of privacy. They're tracking your behavior on the internet and trying to see, what you're interested in. So that's also come to the fore. Augmented reality and virtual reality, which also plays a big role in education. And I think Judy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think augmented reality and virtual reality plays a big part or a role in preparation for space, preparing astronauts for space, because you can, in a virtual environment with a headset, you can teach them certain things to do, which you can't do if you're not in that physical environment or a 0G environment.
Yes, Nico, you're very right. If I may just come in there.
Yeah, sure.
Augmented reality and virtual reality. Really, it's fantastic for building simulators so that we can train. For many, many years, airplane pilots have been training on simulators because it's too expensive and too dangerous to learn and make mistakes on a real airplane in the air. And so yeah, in a lot of careers, using simulators is really fantastic. When it comes to operating, let's say, dangerous machinery down a mine, in a lot of environments, we are better off and we are safer because of using these technologies, so that we can train in an environment where we can afford to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes without actually being hurt or without destroying the equipment. And the thing is, it's really interesting because I'm going to give you an example of augmented reality. A few years ago, I was in the UK. I was in London, and I was walking from one area, and I needed to find a train station, and for the underground, because I needed to get to my next appointment. But the thing is that there were buildings in the way and all of that kind of thing. I was running Google Maps, as a navigator, and I was walking along, and then I realized that what I actually had is there was a pop-up on Google Maps that I could click on. And what I was able to do is I was able to hold up my phone, and then what it did is it actually pointed and it put the pin behind the building that I was next to. So what it was doing is it was showing me, on the other side of this block, that is where the train station entrance is. And that was augmented reality, because it recognized the building I was standing in front of using object recognition. And combining that with GPS, my GPS location, it was able to show me. So that was a real help for me, because I was getting a little bit flustered because I didn't really know where I was. And so, yeah, augmented reality is where you have actual reality, and then you're augmenting it with layers of data on top of that. To really help us. And then, of course, virtual reality is where it's completely fake, but it can look unbelievably real, and real enough, so that we can use it for productivity.
Judy, thank you so much for that. Yes, very, very valuable information. I see Declan has raised his hand.
Yes, I'd just like to mention that with augmented reality, AR, I think it's going to be an extremely widespread thing in the future, in the sense that the workplace is going to be completely different. For example, take a job like a product designer. In the future, they're probably going to be using AR and VR systems to visualize the products they design in a more real fashion, and be able to 3D build instead of using a computer, but rather with their hands and more direct approaches.
Yeah, very, very. It's a great example that you're mentioning, and also by using those technologies, augmented reality and 3D printing, you can what we call reiterate. Especially if you're doing a prototype, you're building something, so you're designing it, you 3D print it, and then you test it. You can reiterate fast through that, because if there's defects or things you want to change, you just do update your design, and then reprint or 3D print a new model or a new prototype, and you go from there. So your time to market, as we call it, is much faster, where in the past you had to build the thing at a great cost, then implement it, see it doesn't work, come back, rebuild it. So yes, very, very true. Thanks for sharing that, Declan. Are there any other comments, or can I carry on? Okay, so again, before we move off the slide, something I want to share with you. I don't know if you've got access to Netflix, but I would encourage you to watch the documentary. It's called Countdown Inspiration 4. Judy, I don't know if you've seen that. That's amazing. It's an amazing documentary.
Yes, that's the Netflix documentary about the Inspiration 4.
Going
to space.
Correct. Yes.
Very, very interesting. How they were able to fast track their training as astronauts. Very, very, very interesting. Inspiring.
Yeah. So I would, what is the word? Ask you to, even if you don't have Netflix, see if you can find or watch it with somebody. It's quite inspiring, and to see their journey. I think it's 5 episodes on Netflix, where it takes you through their journey, the training and everything, and then eventually they went into orbit. I think they made history. They went up the highest. They went higher than the International Space Station. So that was a first. And also interesting, the rockets that they use is from SpaceX, which is Elon Musk, which is an ex-South African. So that was also interesting to see. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then again, as you see at the bottom here, the above, or what we're talking about, does not happen without your help. And again, I encourage you, the time is now to be imaginative and creative. Okay, so let's look at a few future predictions around 4IR. And keep in mind, these predictions were made in 2015. So that's 7 years ago. And the predictions was aimed at technology, what they call technology tipping points, expected to occur in 2025, which is 3 years from now. It's actually quite frightening if you think about it. What they basically did, what this study or the survey did, is they interviewed 800 technology executives and experts from the information and technology sector, and asked them, through their knowledge and experience, what do they see as tipping points by the year 2025, brought about by Industry 4.0. So this is what they came up with. 10%. What they predict is that 10% of people wearing clothes connected to the internet by 2025. The first robotic pharmacists in the US will be there by 2025. The first 3D printed car in production. And when I saw this, it's amazing. For me, it's unbelievable. But yeah, this is their predictions, or these are their predictions. 5% of consumed products printed in 3D. Imagine that. 90% of the population with regular access to the internet. And the internet has been a big stumbling, a challenge. Let's put it as a challenge to a lot of people that doesn't have direct access to the internet. But let's hope that at least this prediction comes true. Driverless cars equaling 10% of all cars on US roads. That US meaning the United States of America or USA. The first transplant of a 3D printed liver, which is amazing. It's unbelievable. Again, keep in mind these are predictions, so I definitely will be watching and observing these things as we go along. Over 50% of internet traffic to homes for appliances and devices. The first city with more than 50,000 people and no traffic lights. That's a very interesting one. And the first AI machine on a corporate board of directors. Okay, so I don't think there's any, I don't see any hands, so let's move on.
Nico, there was a question earlier that Judy did address, but maybe you want to discuss it because it might fit in here. Karine was asking, does the fourth industrial revolution help in achieving the SDG goals?
Definitely. Very, very good question, Karine. I saw when I was preparing for this presentation, I saw an interesting article, which is not really relevant for this discussion, but the article was on education and how education needs to change to accommodate the fourth industrial revolution, and that's a very interesting topic, and maybe a, how can I say, a sensitive topic, because as we know, and we'll briefly just touch on it on some of my slides, that our current educational system, and it's not only in South Africa or Africa, that goes for the whole world, is sort of lagging behind in the way we're teaching learners, and versus, you know, what we should be teaching them to be ready for IR. So and in this study, where they specifically look at how the education system needs to change, how the way we teach learners and students at university level needs to change. They specifically focused on SDG, I think it was 4, which is better education or education for all. So yes, most definitely. I think the one positive thing with 4IR is that it helps, or it complements, if I can say, some of the SDGs, you know, technology making it happen. I see Declan, you've got your hand up again.
I'd just like to mention, when I saw where it says the first transplant of a 3D printed liver, I remember a little while back, I was absolutely stunned because on the BBC, they had an article regarding 3D printing using human lab-grown tissue. And it was just absolutely amazing to me because normally, of course, 3D printing is done with hard materials like PLA or I can't remember the other ones, just PLA off the top of my head, which is a hard material. So a soft material like lab-grown cells and human tissue is absolutely beyond me. So, I mean, that does sound pretty realistic.
Yeah, agreed, Declan. That is truly, as I said earlier, that's, to me, it's truly amazing. You know, that and again, it's a demonstration of the fusion between a physical machine, a 3D printer, using, I think they use stem cells or something, or they would use stem cells to print the liver that we're talking about. But it's a typical application of the fusion between the physical world and the cyber world to make this happen, which is I think mind-blowing. Are there any other comments? I don't see any hands, so let's move on. Okay, so
Nico, sorry, Nico, it's Judy again.
yeah, sure.
If I can just interrupt.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Brittany, I'm sorry for this, but I'm actually going to share a story about you. And I don't even know if you're going to remember this, but for everybody, I remember when we met Brittany when she was 15 years old, and she was at high school. We were having a conversation about textbooks. There's always a challenge in South Africa that the textbooks never get delivered on time for the school year to start. And Brittany's comment was, but I never open a textbook. As soon as it was printed, it was out of date. The most relevant information I can find will be on the internet, because that is updated constantly. And, so I think, Brittany, I'm not sure if you remember making that comment, but, and that's such an example of how education globally is so behind, is that, we're still printing things on paper instead of really focusing on giving students access to internet. And yeah, internet access is a massive challenge. And that is something that there's a number of companies who are trying to solve that. I mean, Intelsat are doing a great job, but there's also other companies like OneWeb or SpaceX with their Starlink, etc. Because it's getting to the point now where access to internet is actually a human right, because we need to have access to information, our own free access to information, in terms of being able to understand the world around us. And just from a human rights perspective.
Malena, I see your hand. Judy, I just want to reiterate on what you're saying. It's interesting you mentioned that internet access becoming a human right. That will be an interesting discussion. But yeah, I think, and rightfully the point is raised here, that they predict 90%. So, which will hopefully further help the adoption or boost the adoption of technology going forward. Malena?
Hi, Nico. My point is from the point of view of an educator. I just want to reiterate how out of date the educational systems are. Our education system here in South Africa, the public school education system, last was updated in 2013. Sure. When the current CAPS curriculum was adopted. And you can imagine how many changes have happened since then. Now they're trying to introduce new subject coding at school. It's already been a couple of years into development. And as it's developing, it's already getting outdated. But from an educator point of view, I just want to reiterate, we are going towards system in education, and what I'm trying to develop in my learners is to develop research skills and skills to help them gather their own knowledge. Because as Judy said, knowledge is changing so fast that instead of trying to insist that our learners are learning facts and knowledge, we're trying to make them develop the skills to gain it for themselves. And that is education that is actually going to benefit them in their future endeavors. So that's what we're doing here as well. Just giving them a little bit of facts, and we're making them do their own research so they know how it's going to be happening in the future.
Malena, yeah, thanks very much for your perspective from an education point of view and being an educator yourself. I agree with you, and as I said earlier, that's why I'm hesitant. It's a very sensitive subject, education, and education keeping track of indeed, what is happening in the technology world. I think the very fact that we're sitting in this session now on a Saturday with people from all over online demonstrates that we already take ownership of upskilling, of our own upskilling, because this initiative you will not find it in a school. There might be schools that does that in a certain way, but what I've found in my research and talking to schools and to educators, there's small pockets of excellence. You will find one or two or three. They're very few and far between where they start looking at technology or 3D printing or doing coding or robotics at school or having a computer club. In essence, all these type of learning that we're having now on a Saturday, and the initiative that Max IQ has been driving with the Space STEM program it's all extramural, it's all out of school context, so there's a big gap, and I'm going to touch also on this in some of my later slides in the presentation. But thanks for bringing that up, Milena. It is a big concern, but from my point of view, I personally think it's how you view it. You as a learner or a future student is what you make of it. And the bottom line is, I think what we're all saying is you need to take ownership of your future. And apart from your school education, there's other things like MOOCs, massive open source online courses. There's things like Udemy and Courseware and so on and so forth, where you, apart from what you're learning at school, if you're interested in coding, there's nothing stopping you to do, to enroll for a course on Udemy, for instance, and doing it in your spare time, to upskill your for instance, your Python skills in coding. That's just one example. But let's continue. Oops, let me just click. Okay, so I then thought, let's look at the workforce of the future, which I said in the beginning would essentially be you as the learner, and the students in university will become the workforce of the future. And this slide deals with stats. So I just want to give a heads up. Stats can be boring, but I would encourage you to look at these stats because they paint a very interesting picture. So the world youth population is growing worldwide, but the growth rates are uneven. It means the percentage is not the same on each continent or each area. Of the 1.8 billion world youth population between the ages of 15 and 29, accounting for more than 25% of the total world population. So a quarter of the total world population are between the ages of 15 and 29. Now, I need to qualify this statement. This research was done in September 2018, which is 4 years ago. So this could be more, I guess. But just keep in mind, these are figures from September 2018. But it's already interesting to see that a quarter or even more, I guess, at this point in time, of the total world population would be youth between the ages 15 to 29. Then 61% of global youth population currently, again, oh yes, that is in the year 2015. It was shown that 61% of global youth population lives in India, or Asia rather. 15% expected increase of youth population in Africa between the years 2017 and 2050. So now that comes closer to home, and I actually went to the research paper where they expecting that the 15% will be even more by this point in time. So keep in mind what we saw in the video earlier, where the narrator was saying Africa has been left behind with the previous industrial revolutions. And keeping in mind that 15% or more of the expected increase in youth population will come from our continent, from Africa. What does that mean? It means that the workforce is going to increase 15% or more. It's going to come from our environment. And we need to be able to identify the opportunities, the work opportunities in the future within 4IR. So this was quite an interesting stat for me. More than 30% of working age population between the ages of 15 to 29% in 2015 was mostly in the Middle East and the north of Africa. I also had a look at the detail around the specifics, and if I can recall, a lot of it is based on Nigeria as well. They mentioning figures from Nigeria as well. There's a huge population in Nigeria of youths between this age, so which was also interesting to see. The global youth are migrating worldwide. That was very interesting. So the reason behind that is, okay, before we look at the stats, the reason behind it, according to the report, is that if they don't find opportunities in their own current environment or their country or the continent that they live in, they typically migrate to overseas to do studies there or to do I think, Brittany, you're a good example. You were in the US and you came back, but it was interesting to see that there's a global migration taking place among the youth. 40 million between the ages of 20 and 29 in 2013 was migrating. 26 million youth migrated for work. So that was also in 2013. And then, as I said, the source was from a study that Deloitte did in collaboration with Global Business Coalition. And the study was done in September 2018. I don't see any hands, so I'm going to move forward. Okay, so now some interesting stats. This comes from the same study by Deloitte that I wanted to share with you. They were asking questions to the youth, and as a matter of interest, you'll see in the latest slide, the youth came across the whole continent. You will see from each continent there were youth involved from different ages in the research. And the question was asked to youth respondents, have they heard about the fourth industrial revolution or the future of work? And 54% have never heard about it before. 26% knew about it, and 20% were not sure. So it will be interesting if you guys can drop in a chat for me. Just say heard of it before you got onto the STEM program, or you only heard about it now. So it will be interesting to see what the percentages from this group is, please. Hi, Judy. Yes.
Nico, what I was thinking is, I'm very happy to, why don't I build a poll?
Please,
if we take a break, because you know we're at the top of the hour.
Sorry,
so
yes,
I thought maybe you know let's do two things at once. If we have a break, then during the break, let me actually take this and put it into a poll, and then we can run the poll when we get back. How about that? That could be quite
excellent.
fun.
Yeah, excellent. I was thinking of a poll, but unfortunately I ran out of time. So I'll be will appreciate if you can assist with that, please. What time then will be?
I'm having a look here. It's 4 minutes past the hour. So should we say we come back at 20 past? Then that gives us a 16-minute break.
I'm happy with that.
Okay, great. So we'll regroup at 20 past the
20
hour.
past. Excellent. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Judy. So from the poll, we saw that Judy ran that 77% knew of 4IR before the time and 23% didn't. So that's quite good. That's great. Judy, I don't know if you want to comment further on this, or can I move on?
Yeah, Nico, absolutely. I think, yeah, the term fourth industrial revolution was coined by Charles Schwab, who is the founder of the World Economic Forum. And so he coined the phrase. And so, yeah, that was quite interesting. So I heard it for the first time in 2015. But yeah, there are many, as we can see, globally, you know, half of the world's population haven't really heard about it. And also the interesting thing is that we only know that that there's been a revolution once it's passed or once we're in it, you know. So that's just one of those things. It's a little bit like we only know that we're experiencing climate change because we are experiencing it. It was very, very difficult to predict. But yeah, back to you, Nico.
Yeah, Judy, that's true. It's actually it's a great analogy. Again, when I was researching for this presentation, one of the remarks made by 4IR, it's like a storm, you know, it's like a looming storm, and you only, once it hits you personally or in your area, then you're aware of it. And as I said many times, I think COVID has brought along or brought forward the presence of 4IR. And adoption that goes with it, you know, technology adoption. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now what they also then did is, apart from the awareness, they look at upskilling from a learner perspective, and they found that 79% of respondees that they interviewed reported that they have to go outside of formal school to get the skills for the job that they want. And I think that resonates with what we said and what Malena also said earlier. Declan, I see your hand is up.
Sorry, I'd just like to mention that with this specific statistic right here, it makes a lot of sense, because I was reading articles recently and it stated that a lot of universities nowadays are moving towards the sense where when you submit your application to a university or resume to a job, a lot of the times they would look more at what you've done, like projects and what you've gone out of your way to do, rather than your exact grades in school. Obviously, they will still look at your grades, but we're moving towards more of a society where it's more of what you've done practically, in a sense. So this statistic makes a lot of sense.
Declan, thank you very much for sharing that. That's very interesting. And from me personally, it's actually heartening to hear that, you know, that universities are how can I say, have a broader mind or viewing it differently, because you know, given my age, we were brought up in an environment where you must get good grades so you can have a good job. So, and what I found increasingly more is, and many people has come to me, you know, young people, and say, what would you advise I do, you know? And what I'm experiencing is in line with what you're saying, is that more and more it's about the certifications and your ability, that what you can do. And an argument would be is, you know, you've got a matric certificate, but if you can show them that you have done, for argument, a course in Python coding, you've done a 100-day boot camp, and you've got a certificate, you've au fait, or you're proficient in coding, you know, you're much more marketable to the industry. If you choose not to go for a degree and to go straight to work, you're much more marketable, and also you show that you've got additional skills. So yes, pretty much, very much on point. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so keep in mind, these again, this survey was done in September 2018, and it was representative of youth across the globe. So I would be interesting to see what the number is nowadays, you know, if it's still 79 or it's gone up or down. Then they also interviewed students, university and college students, and 1/3 or 1 out of 3 of the respondents said that their college or university did not prepare them with the skills for the job that they want. Now, that to me is actually more alarming, because, you know, if you can afford to go to college or university to prepare you, you know, that's where one would think that you would ready yourself for the future of work that lies ahead. So that to me personally was a concern, but yeah, that's what the stats are saying. Sorry. Okay. Then on the responsibility of upskilling, what was also very interesting is that the youth recognized that as a result, the youth believe that they are responsible for preparing themselves for future jobs. So in this case, it showed 33% believe that it's upon them to take responsibility for upskilling themselves. 27% for colleges or rest on the responsibility rest on colleges and universities, 21 on schools, government, and so on and so forth. So that just underwrites again that, you know, what I've been saying all along in this presentation, the opportunity is now, you know, make the most of it. And I'm almost tempted to say, don't wait until you have left school. You know, if there's certain interests and passions that you would like to learn more about, I have started now at the age of 58. Well, I'm turning 58 end of this year. I've started now actually a Udemy course on Python. I'm learning myself to do Python coding. So if I can do it, why not anybody else? You've got much younger, you've got age on your side, I would say. Then if we look at, or the report actually looked at the skills demand at in 2020 versus what it would be in 2030, and predicted demand of workers or employees in 2020 compared to the predicted demand. So it shows your 2020 demand and the 2030 demand. So interesting. And again, also this slide is representative of where the respondents came from. So as you can see, it's global. It's interesting to see the spread in Canada, China, and Brazil, and I was quite impressed and happy to see that they've got South Africa on here as well. And also interesting, if you look at the numbers, Canada, they predicted in 2020 about 1.1 million to 2030, 2.3 million. If you look at China, it's going down 75.3 million to 24.5 million. Would be interesting to see. Italy is also going down, but if you look at the numbers, you know, the capacity or the amount that of workers, the demand that they're looking at, it's quite interesting. Whereas South Africa is sort of in the third place, if I can call it that. Looking at 7.8 million in 2020 demand for workers or workforce, and 9.2 million by 2030. So that was some interesting stats for me to see. Then if we look at youth unemployment, again, as I stated, this was done in September 2018. It showed, and it doesn't specifically show South Africa, but the continent of Africa, and more specific in North Africa, it showed 29% unemployment rate at that point in time. And quite alarming in Greece, it was showing in 2017, 44%. And then as you see, the other companies or the other continents rather, being less, going down. So what I did is, in the break, I went and did a quick Google to see what the employment rate in South Africa is. I think it was last year in 2021, and it was quite alarming to see that they're looking, they're reporting that in 2021, between the ages of 15 to 24 years, I found it hard to be true, but 63.3% is the unemployment rate for that age group. And then the older 25 to 34 is 41.3. And that's first quarter of 2021. That was I guess COVID has got a huge role to play, because that was right in the middle of COVID. But yeah, that's unfortunately what the figures are saying. Oops, sorry. Any comments at this point in time?
Nico, if I can just drop in with a bit of an opinion from my personal experience,
Sure.
I was part of that graduating class 2017 through 2018 of students who just left high school and were starting to go into internships and tertiary education. And it rings through what you were saying then and now, that they look at not only your grades, having like a good pass mark and grade average is not good enough. It doesn't cut it in tertiary and outside of it. Like Judy mentioned, her company is one of the companies that look at the individual holistically. So how are you building your skills outside of a formal education setting? So for internships, in my experience, and then also fellowships and research opportunities, they usually choose the student who's a 60 to 70% grade average, but also does skills development outside of the formal schooling environment. So who would do Udemy courses and YouTube things, and who would get involved in other projects. They would choose that student over the student who solely focused on school and got an A average.
Thanks for that, Brittany. And yes, again, very true. I guess it comes down to, you know, showing that you're taking responsibility and that you're serious about, you know, academic wise, as you said, you're a 60%er or a 65%er, but you take ownership of your own upskilling, and you don't sit and wait for a university, as we saw in that one slide. This one, oops. You're part of the 31% that takes ownership and responsibility for your own education, which then obviously demonstrates to a future employer or to the university, you know, if you're a potential student coming into the university, you're eager to learn, and you will hopefully make a success of it. So fully agree. Okay, so yeah, so as I said, to me this is quite high, but I guess, you know, if you look at when it was taken, I think COVID's got a big role to play in these figures, and one can only hope that as we go forward and technology adoption and education picks up on, you know, 4IR and the way to skill up around that we can start driving these numbers down. Okay, so I think this is the sort of the last slide before I end with the video, but I thought it would be good to look at, you know, we've looked at the stats, and the stats is painting, I wouldn't say a dark picture, but it doesn't paint a really positive picture. And the fact that we also see that, you know, it's largely upon the individual to take ownership of their upskilling and to make a success out of it. I thought it would be good to say, or to look and see, what is it that you need to focus on. Now, keep in mind, when I say 21st century skills, these are skills, and you will see here, this was a study done by the World Economic Forum. In 2015, these were the skills rated from first being the highest skill or the most important skill, complex problem solving, to creativity being number 10. And in 2020, you can see how that changed. Complex problem solving was still at the top. Creativity has actually jumped from 10 to third place. But what I wanted to say is, keep in mind that these skills are what I call soft skills, and it's more focused on you as a person and an individual. And these skills alone won't, how can I put it, guarantee you success, you still have to do your education at school, because there's other things like science, technology, engineering, maths, arts, and these things that contribute to your skills. But these skills that you see here talks to personal skills that you need to acquire over and above your scholastic skills and your university skills to be able to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. And as it states here, you know, what they rate as the most important one is complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with each other, emotional intelligence. Now, you all heard about IQ, and you know, where they look at your I can't remember what the I stands for, coefficient, but it basically gives a rating of your intelligence. I gather the I is then intelligence coefficient. Nowadays, they also look at emotional intelligence, or EI coefficient, meaning that, you know, how do you handle change? How do you handle disruption? How do you handle challenges as an individual in your workplace, in your own life? And as you can see here, the World Economic Forum rates it as one of the 6 most important 21st century skills, is how to cope with that. Then number 7 is judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation skills, and cognitive flexibility, which I guess you know, talks to cognitive being the mind, so it talks to being able or flexible and receiving for new ideas and so on. The other point that I also want to highlight is, if you think again, if you pull this through to what we're doing in this Space STEM course with Max, IQ, and Judy and the team, is you will find, if you think carefully about it, the way we're presenting the course, and specifically the sessions we had around your kit and to build your kit, and the problems we had with the Wi-Fi, it's done on purpose, if I can call it that, because we want you to hone the skills on complex problem solving. Then on the sessions that Milena and Colin, myself, on the IoT, for instance, on my side, you know, where I've encouraged you to see how you could use IoT technology, and based on the social development goals, you know, how you can apply technology to obtain those SDGs, and that talks to creative thinking. Also, people management and judgment, decision making, negotiation, and I guess cognitive flexibility and emotional intelligence comes into play, where you go into your groups, and the group that I'm part of, the SDG 3 group, you know, I've already seen in the conversations and the WhatsApps that I've been monitoring, you guys are exercising these skills, which is great, and it's warming to see that you're owning these skills, you know, managing them amongst yourselves, doing thinking, doing orientation, and so on and so forth. So I think I'm going to end with saying this is what the World Economic Forum reckons how you should personally ready yourself over and above your skills that you gather from a school level and university later, but to focus on this. And that's also, interestingly, we talk about STEM being science, technology, engineering, and maths, but there's more and more people talking about STEAM and not STEM, where they add the A in STEM. The A stands for arts. So the arts aspect of the STEAM brings in the creativity side and the critical thinking and so on. So I want to leave you with that, and I'm going to end with a video from the University of Johannesburg, or UJ. I thought, okay, I see, Amable, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, so can I share my screen? I want to show something.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Give me a minute. Can you see? Can you see my screen?
We're starting to see it. Yes, there we go. Yes, we can see it.
So here are some pictures. You see, I hope everyone can get some meaning. So the reason why I started by showing you these pictures, there are predictions which tell us about the possibility of millions of people facing unemployment in the next decade due to automation and neural networks. So, adding robots to the economy displaces workers, and those workers face an immediate direct crisis as they have to find new jobs or maybe even new fields entirely. So my question is, how can the world keep using artificial intelligence and advanced technology in general while also lowering unemployment?
Okay, it's Judy here. Let me come in and let me share my view on it. All the way through our development over thousands of years, human beings, we've always replaced menial work and jobs with technology. From the time that we developed the first agricultural equipment, for example, a hoe that we put behind a mule or an ox to help us, till the land. So that we could plant it instead of actually standing there, with a row of people with spades. So, what you could say is that, 5,000-7,000 years ago, farm workers felt that they were being displaced by one piece of farming equipment. With every single development, jobs get replaced by technology. When I was 19 years old, I had a weekend job on a Saturday. I used to work at a bank, Nedbank, and it was down in Main Street in Johannesburg. And my job on a Saturday was to go through the checks, paper checks that people had written, and make sure that the signature on the check matched the signature on file. This was a very, very manual process. This was a completely paper-based process. Nowadays, we don't even write checks anymore. We don't even send checks. If a signature needs to be verified, it's going to be verified using object recognition or character recognition by a computer. And the thing is that in those days, there must have been 30, 35 of us in one big room on a Saturday morning, verifying checks that had been deposited. And that was in only one branch of a bank. Those jobs have gone away. There's many jobs that get replaced all the time. So having a fear that technology, robotics, artificial intelligence, etc., is going to replace jobs or is going to take away jobs from humans, it's a fact, it's a reality. It's always going to happen. And it's not what happens to us that is important, it's how we deal with it that is important. And so now that we know that it's a fact that people's jobs are going to be replaced by technology, what we need to do is we need to prepare ourselves for that future. We need to make sure that we have roles and careers and jobs that cannot be replaced by a machine. So, for example, a machine cannot invent, a machine cannot be creative, a machine cannot have that kind of like intellectual, strategic or tactical imagination. So yeah, what we need to do is we need to focus on those careers. Here you go. Yes, Nico, thank you very much. These skills are what is going to be important, because these are the skills that machines are not going to be able to perform. So yeah, Amable, you're very right. Of course, there are these predictions, and the predictions are correct. And it's not that we need to become victims of our own futures. What we have to do, it's how we deal with it. That is important. Yeah, so that's my contribution. I mean, please, everybody else.
Thanks, Judy. I had problems with my mic, so I had to leave and come back into the session. So I missed most of the discussion, but I guess the question from Amable was, you know, the threat of machines taking over our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Reza, do you want to, you're quite busy here in the chat. Do you want to make a contribution verbally?
Hi, everyone. So my take on this whole situation is that technology has only helped us throughout the years with like tedious tasks such as construction, whether it be programming as well, helping us in factories. If anything, it has helped us, how do you say?
More productive, I guess.
More productive.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And it has opened more job opportunities as well. Instead of taking away job opportunities, it has just opened so much more spaces for people to be creative and just do it themselves, you know.
Yeah, my view has always been that if I'm busy with the wrong things, I haven't got time for the right things. Yeah. So if I am very, very busy doing a menial task, then it means that I don't have enough time to do really value-adding work. And so, yeah, if we can, the more we can give machines to do that's repetitive and boring and tedious and often unsafe, the more we can actually use our human brains and our intellect to add value. So I spent a good 15 years in the mining industry as a chemical engineer, and it always upset me very much that people's lives and people, you know, were opening themselves up to being harmed and injured, and sometimes even losing their lives because of the working environment. And I always felt that it was a lot better to send machines down a mine or have machines working in refineries and all of these toxic environments. We shouldn't have human beings working in those environments. We need to have machines working in those environments. So the more we can convert jobs to being done by machines, I believe it's actually better for us. It's better for us physically, and it's also better for us mentally. There's a lot of jobs that people have to do to earn money that are really, really, really not good for them. And so, yeah, if we can just focus on jobs that are better for us emotionally, mentally, and that add more value, that's where we need to be going on this planet.
Yes, Judy, if I can add to that, I can't remember clearly, but through my studies or research rather, they talk about the 4Ds, where D for donkey. So they talk about the 4Ds when it comes to machines. So normally it's when it's dangerous or it's dull, repetitive work, dearest, where people can get hurt. I can't remember the fourth one. That's where they predominantly use machines to do the work for us. And then have the humans focus, using these skills, because, machines in a factory can do repetitive work like welding a car, but they can't design the car, and so on and so forth. So that's why, as you rightfully said, our focus should be on honing these skills so that we can combine that with our technology knowledge and then, work with the machine, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense. Leave the repetitive jobs and the dangerous jobs to the machines. But also what I would like to mention, which add to Amabel's question, is we had a few years back, and if you go onto the World Economic Forum, in the studies they've done lots of other studies on the impact of 4IR. One of the reports that I read at some point in time was in the banking environment. A lot of tellers predominantly has lost their jobs because I mean, nowadays you can basically do everything on your phone. You don't have to go to the bank anymore. So in that vein, computers, yes, they did take the job away, but what the study also then did is encourage, people that were tellers to look at, becoming data scientists, or, if you used to do Excel spreadsheets, go into Power BI and see if you can, teach yourself to run stats. We saw in the other slide I showed earlier, big data being quite prominent with the 4IR technology. So there's a lot of data that now suddenly banks have to number crunch. If you become a data scientist and teach yourself skills on how to do data analysis and look for trends in banking customer behavior, you've created a new job opportunity for yourself. Obviously, these things comes over time, but I think partly what I'm trying to do with this presentation is to point out, where things could go wrong, where, there are challenges, and where you should be focusing on to see how you can better yourself and push and position yourself for and also, in positioning yourself, reskilling yourself and upskilling yourself to put you in a better position in the future. So that would be my take. Can you still hear me? It's very quiet.
Yes, we certainly can.
Okay.
Hi, Nico, can I just add my perspective?
Yes, of course.
To young people. Look at it this way. What the fourth industrial revolution did is cancel that mentality of the people that were living in the second half of the last century, that they start a job and they get pension in that job. My father in Bulgaria for 45 years worked in one factory. He was an engineer and he took different posts in that factory, but he got his pension from that factory. And that was it, and that made him happy. But at the end of the day, he didn't move much from where he started. I mean, lifestyle-wise, he just knew he's gonna go into that job, and he got the pension from that job. That's not possible anymore. At the moment, what Judy said is you have to concentrate on what value what you're doing adds to your life, because it's not only about the money, it's a big part about the money, but it's also every time you develop your skills, you upskill yourself, you get into a project that is better than the project that you did last. You're growing as an intellect, as a human being. And I think you should be looking at the jobs that you're going to be looking for, what value those jobs are adding to yourself, not only what value you're adding to the world around you, but what value you're adding to yourself. That should be the biggest focus with the jobs you're taking. Because if you resign yourself on a mainly repetitive and manual job, and that makes you happy, where are you spending your intellect on? Are you spending it on your side hobbies? Or are you spending it on your family? And if that is where you want to spend your intellect, why are you doing that job? Think of it in that way. What value what you're doing adds to yourself as a spirit, as a human being, as a mental health, as an intellect, because then you're going to be in the right path. Me, I studied as a physicist. My degree is in physics. But when I immigrated to South Africa, I fell into teaching. And actually, I found out that's what gives me satisfaction intellectually, because that's what I'm good at. And now me upskilling myself at teaching coding and getting into fields that wasn't there when I was in varsity. That adds to my personal satisfaction. And I know if I'm trying to look at career in that direction, I probably will find something later on. Me being at this course as your mentor, I'm upskilling myself as well. I'm learning a lot as well. So it's a continuous process. It will never stop. It will only stop when you decide to stop it. Maybe not even after you get pension, but maybe only when you're not around anymore. So think of it in that way.
Melina, thank you for that. That is very, very true. There's a saying that I've come across: we must become lifelong learners. And if you think about it, as you rightfully said, you've changed your career from a physicist to going into education. Judy was a chemical engineer, and now being an entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. So it's a journey, and through that journey, you're never too old to learn. So I think it's also a mindset that one must grow, that you must be willing to be a lifelong learner through your journey through life. Currently you guys are in school, and you're learning school stuff, but you've already chosen, that's why you're part of this Space STEM course, to learn more, to take the responsibility, and to learn more about STEM and space and so on, and we commend you for that. So I think that, as I said, it's a mindset, and having that positive mindset will also, when you get to things like an environment in your work life where you find that your job is becoming obsolete or boring, it will assist you to identify new opportunities and to start moving that way. Thanks a lot, Melina.
Nico, can I please add something?
Yes, sure.
I just want to add to what Judy and yourself and Melina said. So my maths teacher actually sent us a video, and in that video there was a person from the government of South Africa, I think is a minister or someone from there, and he was talking about unemployment in South Africa, and he said one of the biggest reasons why unemployment is such a great issue in South Africa is because the youth is focusing on careers that are already there, careers where there's not a great demand. People already do the job, and in the STEM field, there's such a great demand for people to work in the STEM field. And South Africa actually import people from other countries to come and work in the STEM field because there's not enough people to work there. And I think that is very, very concerning. And if the youth actually focuses on that, and I think there's actually a lot of jobs there waiting for the youth in the STEM field. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent observation. Again, I can only say in that it creates an opportunity. Thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, so I think I want to conclude, Judy. I've got my last slide here. I'm going to end with the video again. It's on the fourth industrial revolution, so it will repeat some of the thoughts and stuff that we've seen. This is from the University of Johannesburg, or UJ. And I think it's from what we've seen, you know, unemployment and the challenges and the technology being disruptive. I found the video to be very positive, and to end this conversation or this presentation on a positive note. And I've chosen the UJ video, but I mean, there's other universities in our country that are also doing amazing work. But I think UJ is one of the leading universities in terms of early adoption around fourth industrial revolution and education around that. And you can clearly see, which you'll pick up in the video, they're positioning themselves around that. So that to me is very positive. And I would like to, as I said, end off the presentation with this video. Can you hear the sound?
We are living.
Yes, we can.
Is it? Okay, thanks.
In a time of great change. Change so great that people are calling it a revolution. The fourth industrial revolution, in fact, or 4IR for short. And it's in the process of changing our lives as individuals, as well as the nature of the societies we live in, beyond recognition. It's an exciting time, but many people are fearful. Robots will take our jobs, many say. Computerization of everything usurps our individuality. It's a worry for many that the data that underlies our access to everything, from banks to the clothing we order, threatens our privacy, our very identities. And are the algorithms of artificial intelligence that send advertisements directly to us, targeting our tastes and telling us what we like, robbing us of our freedom of choice? But we say, human striving has always been there to make the world better, not worse. What if instead of fear we have hope? If instead of mistrust we have optimism? And if instead of thinking of what we might lose, we think of how much we can gain if we do things in the right way, for ourselves, for our societies, for our planet? How much better would our world be, equally, for all of us? People look around and see whole categories of jobs disappearing. But what of all the other new and different jobs that are needed to replace them? What's more, if we can build machines to build other machines, then can we not build these new jobs into new ways of teaching and learning?
Right now in Johannesburg, South Africa, it's 55 degrees.
There are systems that speak to each other rather than to us, some say. But we say we can speak to each other about how to maximize the benefits. We believe that people will always be needed, especially for ethical discussion and ensuring equality of access and advantage. We need to think and act to make the world we're building a world for all of us, to have better opportunities, study more productively, work more creatively, and live safer, longer lives. So if artificial intelligence can give us wheelchairs that climb stairs, or navigation apps that can help the blind negotiate their world, if bionic limbs and exoskeletons can be operated by thought alone, then how can we ensure that all people who need breakthrough technologies like these benefit equally wherever they are? And if machine learning can take over a myriad of tasks, then surely everything from mining to flying a plane or even crossing the road can be made safer. And if access to information, justice, and equality can be facilitated with less effort and expense, then how does society maximize the opportunities for all? And crucially, how do we find, develop, and train the as yet undiscovered talent in our societies so that new job finders can do the jobs they do with readiness and confidence? It's a daunting challenge, and it's an ongoing journey, but it's one that we at the University of Johannesburg With our quest for global excellence and as an academic and research leader in Africa are undertaking with energy and commitment. And we invite everyone to join us in whatever capacity on our quest to meet these challenges with the right questions in pursuit of the right answers for the benefit of all of us, our continent, and the world we share. 4IR may be a virtual world of ideas, but the quality of everyone's reality is crucial as we all seek to ensure that physical, technological, and economic equality and the ethics that underpin it are woven into the fabric of our future. So, what if we all worked together to make certain that 4IR works for us, not against us, for better medical care, for more innovative jobs and the innovative education they will require, for equal opportunity and access, for safer, happier lives where getting the basics right does not mean losing the heritage of our planet. We see the hope in all this, the excitement and energy, the urgency. We recognize this as the time to work towards a brighter future for everyone, everywhere. The time to truly be creating tomorrow. The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.
Okay, thanks. Judy, that concludes my presentation, and I hope, on this positive note from the video that it's given you all a broader perspective on 4IR, and also encourage you to delve in deeper and research more, and also in your own worlds to see where you can position yourself and what skills are there that you would like to upskill or hone, whether it may be extramural like we're doing in this forum, or through Udemy or online, whatever, but I hope it encourages you to in going forward in your careers. Thank you.
Nico, thank you very much. That was